Hello students, welcome to Accounting 1329, Payroll and Business Tax Accounting. This is Dr. Mercado speaking, and I just want to welcome you to another week. Now in this particular week, we are going to be covering Chapter 4, Income Tax Withholding. This is the first week that we cover this chapter, so it is critical that you read the chapter before you attempt any of your assignments, okay? Do not skip the part of the reading. It is essential that you read. If you don't read, you're not going to understand any of your homework problems, okay? So before you work on any of your quizzes or your homework for the week, you read the chapter, okay? Once you're done reading the chapter, make sure that you review the PowerPoints. You review the demonstration videos posted within your homework assignment. You listen to my lectures that I post on Blackboard. And then once you're done doing all that, you can proceed to working on your quiz and your homework. Remember, your quiz is multiple choice. It is timed. Your homework is workout problems that you can take as long as you need to. 2 attempts are provided for both your homework and your quiz, and I will always keep the highest grade. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me Monday through Friday during my scheduled office hours, and my scheduled office hours can be found on your course syllabus. Okay? Make sure that if you do have any questions on any of the problems, you inform me of the problem number and your specific question. I don't want to just get a message, Miss, I'm lost. Okay? Lost where? What problem? What exactly are you having issues with? I need a little bit more detail than I'm lost, okay? So please make sure that you include the problem number and your step-by-step calculations that you're trying based on the examples provided and what you've read. What are you doing to solve this problem? Okay, I want to see you try, okay? And make sure, a friendly reminder, make sure that you do print out your syllabus. You have a folder for my class, and you stay up to date with all of the assignment due dates. Everything is posted on your syllabus. Okay, so there is no excuse for you to forget when an assignment is due, when a test is due, because everything is outlined on your syllabus. Okay, remember, I do not grant extensions or makeups, so don't feel that, oh, I'll just do it later. No, you have to stay organized and make sure that you keep up with all of your assignment deadlines, okay? So let's get started. Now, in this particular lecture, I'm going to go over problem 4.1a. Okay, this is an introductory problem, and it basically just explains how to calculate your net pay for a specific employee. Okay, so it says Justin Matthews is a waiter at the Deluxe Lounge. In his first weekly pay in March, he earned $300 for the 40 hours that he worked. Okay, so he worked regular wages, $300 for 40 hours. In addition, he reports his tips for February to his employer. He made $500 in tips, and the employer is going to withhold the appropriate taxes for the tips from this first pay in March. Okay, so it's very important what they just stated. The tips were for February, but they were reported barely this week, so they're going to be the appropriate taxes are going to be deducted in the first pay in March, which is the one that we are calculating. Okay, now they ask us to calculate his net take-home pay, assuming that the employer withholds federal income tax using the wage bracket method, and this employee is filing joint. Okay, we're also going to deduct Social Security taxes and state income tax of 2%. Okay, so when we use the wage bracket method, we basically are provided with a list of tables, and depending on several factors, if they're filing single, married, weekly, monthly, semi-monthly, there's a variety. There's tables for each circumstance. So the first thing is to identify the correct table that we have to use. Okay, and then just locate the amount of the pay that is going to be taxed under that specific bracket, and then we can easily be able to identify the taxes that are going to be held for federal income tax purposes. There is no calculations when we use the wage bracket method. All we do is we refer to a table, we look at the wage brackets that we fall under. Okay, we look at the correct table, the wage brackets that we fall under, and then we just basically run our fingers through and locate the amount that is a tax amount. So no calculations, it's just a matter of selecting the correct amount. Now these tables have a lot of numbers, so I recommend that you use a ruler, okay, because you can easily pick the incorrect number. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to calculate his net pay, but first we need to figure out, well, how much is his gross pay? How much did this employee make this week? Okay, and according to the problem, this week, Justin earned $300. Okay, so Justin earned $300. Okay, now you might ask yourself, Miss, what about the tips? Okay, well, yes, the tips, he did make $500 in tips, but he made those tips in February. Okay, the tips were in February. So those are not wages for this pay period. Okay, he already has the money was already collected. That those are not wages for this pay period. Okay, the tips come into play only when we calculate the taxes. Okay, because in this pay period we are gonna withhold the appropriate taxes for the tips. Okay, so the tips are not part of the wages, but we're going to use the wages that he earned to pay the appropriate taxes for the tips that he earned last month. Okay, so how much did this employee make this pay period? This employee made $300. Okay, now we have to figure out the federal income tax. Okay, and like I said, for the federal income tax is using the correct table. Now I couldn't screenshot the whole table because it's very long, so I just screenshotted the part that I'm going to need. But the first thing is we have to identify how frequently is this employee paid. This employee is getting paid weekly, so you're going to select the table that is the weekly pay period, which I did. Okay, and then we have to locate the amount that we're going to use in the table. Now you might say, well, it starts at 765 right here. Yes. Okay, why does it start here at 765? The other piece is, I didn't cut it and paste it here because like I said, it was too long. I don't need the other piece because this is where I'm going to be calculating my federal income tax for purposes of this problem. Okay, now, what is my federal income tax for this a specific employee for Justin based on the wages that he earned and the tips that were reported for February? So for federal income tax purposes, we are going to calculate taxes on $800, okay? That is the tips plus the wages that he earned, okay? So for purposes of this problem, all taxes are going to be based on $800. The tips plus the wages, $500 plus $300. Why? Because the problem states that in this pay period, we are going to pay the appropriate taxes for the tips. Okay, that is the key word here. Okay, we're going to pay the appropriate taxes for the tips. Okay, so even though the employee only earned $300, we are going to pay taxes on $800. $300 for the wages and $500 for the tips. Okay, so now I have to look into my table. Now, in this employee says it's married filing jointly. Okay, so we're going to be looking at our table and we're going to look at this section right here, married filing jointly. Okay, so we have three boxes or three columns. The first one's married filing jointly, head of household, and single or married filing separate. And depending on the bracket that you're in or what your specific reporting responsibility is the bracket that you're going to use. So in this case, we are using married filing jointly. So we're going to be selecting numbers in this area right here. Okay, so you have to identify, okay, what category do I fall under? Okay, you identify the category. Now I know that the numbers I'm going to select are here. Okay, now we have the standard withholding, which is what we're going to be using. And then we have Form W4, Step 2, checkbox withholding. That does not apply to us. So we're always going to be using the standard withholding. Okay, so we're going to be using the first column. So we know that we're going to go to the specific category, married filing jointly, and we're going to select the number based on the standard withholding. Now, I know that I'm going to pay federal income tax on $800. So I'm going to go and I'm going to locate the bracket that has the $800. So here we have the bracket 795 to 805. That is where we fall under, okay? And it's a little bit small, I know, but this is where we maybe need a magnifying glass. But we're going to locate the bracket right there. And according to the bracket, if we fall between 795 and 805, which we do, it's 800, we're going to pay $32 of federal income tax. Okay, $32. That is our responsibility. So I'm going to put that in minus sign because these are taxes that are going to be withheld. Okay, so this is money that we're going to have to take away from the paycheck. So we're going to deduct $32 for federal income tax. Okay. So how did I get that? I went to my weekly period table. I looked at my married filing jointly column. I looked at my standard withholding. I located the amount of $800 in my brackets. So it's between 795 and 805. I just run my finger across, and wherever we have the standard withholding, that's the amount that we're going to withhold, which is $32. Okay? So just be careful on the amounts that you choose. Make sure that you are using the right bracket. Okay? Now, let's say, for example, this amount would have been 805. Okay? If you see here, it's at least 795, but less than 805. Okay? Assuming that this amount would have been 805, we would have used the following bracket. At least 805, but less than 815. Okay? Why? Because that bracket that we're currently using is less than 805. Okay, so it'll be 804.99. So if we want the 805, we would have to go to the next line item and pick that next bracket, which would have been $33. Okay, so just be very careful. At least, but less than. So make sure that whenever you're looking at that number, you use the right brackets. Okay. Okay, so that is how we calculate the federal income tax. We use a table. We just have to locate the information on the table. Okay. Now we also have to deduct OASDI and HI. Those are my Social Security taxes. Okay. Remember, we are paying Social Security taxes on the $800, which is your tips plus your wages. And for OASDI, it's 800 times 6.2%. Let me get my calculator out. So it's 800 times 6.2%. That will give me $49.60. Okay. And once again, it's in a minus because this is a deduction. Okay. HI is going to be 800 times 1.45%. Okay. Let me get my calculator. So it's 800 times 1.45%. That'll be 1160. And then we have the state income tax. The state income tax rate is provided at 2% in the problem. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the state income tax. And we are doing all taxes on the $800. This is for the wages and the tips. Okay. Remember, we are withholding the appropriate taxes for the tips in this first paycheck in March. Okay. So we have 800 times 2%. That's $16 of state income taxes. Okay. Once we have calculated all of our taxes, now we can figure out how much is this employee taking home in this paycheck. Okay. So we're going to get the $300 and we're going to subtract all of the withholdings. And that leaves us with $190.80. Okay. So yes, the employee earned $300 of wages this pay period, but this pay period, the employer was going to be withheld not only for the $300 of wages, but also for the $500 of tips that were earned in February. So we're going to withhold taxes on the wages and on the tips. And this is all of the withholdings for both the wages and the tips. The employee this paycheck earned $300, but they're only taking home $190.80. That will cover all of the taxes that needed to be withheld for both the wages and the tips. Okay, so fairly straightforward problem. Just remember that taxes are deductions, so you should be subtracting those from your gross pay. That is why they're in parentheses or in negative. That way you can deduct from your gross pay. Okay. Very simple when you're using the wage bracket tables. It's just locating the proper table, identifying what category are we filing under, married filing jointly, head of household or single, or married filing separate, and then locate the amount of your earnings for that period. In this case, we were paying taxes on $800, the $300 of wages plus the $500 of tips. You locate it in the brackets. Once you locate it in the brackets, you just run your number and you go to the standard withholding, and that's the amount of your withholding for federal income tax purposes. Okay, just be very careful when running those numbers that you pick the correct number, because there's a lot of numbers, a lot of tiers. Just be very, very careful. Okay, so that is basically it for this problem. Very straightforward. We've already covered how to do Social Security taxes in the last chapter. In this particular chapter, we are introducing federal income tax, and in this problem, we are introducing the wage bracket method, which is just going to the tables and picking out numbers from the tables based on the information provided. Okay, so that is basically it. Make sure that you are very careful when you're working out your problems. You read the problem instructions carefully, and if you have any questions or concerns, do not hesitate to contact me. Okay, thank you and have a wonderful day.